Emily Parker had always prided herself on being the kind of woman who could handle any situation with grace. At 36, she balanced her small floral business, her family responsibilities, and her friendships like a tightrope walker. But there were moments in life when the tightrope shook, when the balance she'd carefully maintained threatened to tip. This story begins on one of those days, the day her husband, Adam, left her alone with his friend. It was a Saturday morning in late spring. Sunlight streamed through the large bay windows in the living room, casting golden patches on the beige carpet. Emily was still in her soft blue cardigan, sipping coffee, when Adam came downstairs, adjusting the cuffs of his shirt. "You're sure you'll be okay here with Brian?" he asked, a trace of hesitation in his voice. "I really need to be at the property site today. We're short on people." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Adam, it's your best friend. Why wouldn't I be okay? I've known Brian for years." Adam gave a small smile, but there was something else there. Maybe guilt, maybe reluctance. "I know, I hate leaving you stuck at home on a Saturday. But Brian's coming over to drop off the tools I need for the backyard project, and he's great company." "Go," she said gently, touching his arm. "You've got work. I'll be fine." Brian arrived a few minutes after Adam left. The doorbell rang, and Emily opened it to find him standing there, wearing a navy jacket, holding a small toolbox in one hand and a bag of pastries in the other. "Morning," Brian said warmly. "I figured if I'm dropping by, I might as well bring breakfast." Emily grinned. "Smart man. Come in." They settled at the kitchen table, the aroma of fresh cinnamon rolls filling the air. It had been months since Emily had seen Brian, and catching up felt easy. He talked about his recent hiking trip in Colorado, how he'd gotten caught in a sudden hailstorm halfway up the mountain trail. Emily laughed at his animated retelling, complete with hand gestures and sound effects. But as the morning wore on, the weather outside shifted. Dark clouds began gathering, casting shadows into the house. A low rumble of thunder rolled in the distance. By noon, the rain was pounding against the windows, and the wind rattled the back door. "Looks like we're stuck for a bit," Brian said, glancing outside. Emily shrugged. "I don't mind. Gives me an excuse to skip my errands." A sudden crack of thunder shook the air, and the lights flickered. Emily felt a twinge of unease. She'd never liked storms. They made the house feel too big, too empty. Brian noticed her glance toward the window. "You okay?" "Yeah," she said, though her voice was softer. I don't like how storms make everything so quiet inside." Brian stood and moved toward the kitchen counter, rummaging in his bag. "Then let's fix that. Got a deck of cards in here. How about a game?" They played for over an hour, the storm becoming background noise. At first, Emily thought of it as just a distraction, but she found herself genuinely enjoying the company. Brian wasn't like Adam in some ways. He was slower in his words, more observant, the type to really look at a person when they spoke. He noticed the small things, that she tapped her fingers when she was thinking, that she laughed more easily when she was comfortable. Halfway through their third game, the lights flickered again and went out completely. "Oh, great," Emily said with a sigh. "That's just perfect." Brian went to check the breaker, but when he returned, he shook his head. "Looks like it's out for the whole block." Without power, the house felt even quieter. Emily fetched a few candles from the pantry, their warm glow softening the edges of the room. "You know," Brian said, "this reminds me of when we were kids and the power went out. We'd sit around telling stories." Emily smiled faintly. "I haven't done that in years." So they did. Brian told her about the time he and Adam had almost missed a flight because they were too busy helping a lost tourist. Emily told him about the first wedding she ever arranged as a florist, how the bride had changed her entire bouquet at the last minute and still cried tears of joy. It was during one of those pauses between stories that Emily noticed something. Brian wasn't just being polite. He was really listening in a way that made her feel seen. It was a rare feeling, and she found herself opening up about things she didn't normally share. The hours passed. Outside, the storm began to weaken, the rain turning into a steady drizzle. By the time Adam came home, the power had returned, but the warm candlelight was still glowing in the corner. He stepped inside, stamping the wet from his boots. "Looks like you two survived the storm." "Barely," Emily teased. "We had to resort to storytelling." Brian grinned. "It wasn't so bad. I think she won the Best Story award, though." As Adam went to put his things away, Emily found herself reflecting on the day. It had been simple, just conversation, laughter, and a storm outside, but it reminded her that sometimes connection doesn't come from grand gestures. Sometimes it's in the quiet hours, the shared moments when you least expect them. That night, as she closed her shop journal, she thought about what she had learned. She realized she'd been missing real, uninterrupted conversations in her life. And maybe, just maybe, she'd try to bring more of them back, with Adam, with friends, with anyone who mattered. For now, the rain had stopped. The air smelled clean, and the evening felt calm. Emily knew life would go back to its normal rhythm, but the day's lesson would stay with her. Sometimes, when the world forces you to slow down, it's giving you the gift of seeing people and yourself a little more clearly.